Lily Evans had never known comfort in her 22 years of life. The daughter of a cobbler and a seamstress, she grew up in a town where dreams were traded for bread. Every morning she stitched torn garments while her younger brother fetched water. Yet, even in poverty, Lily carried herself with a grace that made people turn their heads. Her emerald eyes shone with quiet resilience, and her kindness toward others was unmatched. One evening, while delivering mended coats to the wealthy district, Lily crossed paths with Adrian Blackwood, a man whose name carried weight in business circles and whose fortune could buy entire villages. He was tall, with sharp features softened by a charming smile. Unlike others of his class, Adrian treated Lily with unexpected gentleness. Days later, to her astonishment, he sought her out again, bringing roses instead of coins. Before long, he knelt on one knee and asked for her hand in marriage. For Lily, the proposal felt like a miracle wrapped in gold. She thought of her family's struggles, the nights of hunger, and the constant fear of sickness with no money for doctors. With Adrian's promise of love and security, she believed fate had finally blessed her. Against all odds, the poor seamstress was about to step into a mansion of marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Little did she know, behind Adrian's perfect smile lay shadows she could never have imagined, darkness that would soon consume her world. The Blackwood estate gleamed like a palace the day Lily Evans became Lily Blackwood. Chandeliers glittered in the grand ballroom as the city's wealthiest men and women arrived in carriages trimmed with gold. Servants rushed about with trays of champagne and caviar, while a string quartet filled the air with elegant music. For a girl who once patched torn shoes and scrubbed laundry by hand, the sight was overwhelming. She felt as though she had been transported into one of the fairy tales her mother used to whisper before bed. Adrian stood tall beside her, his arm steady and his smile dazzling as he introduced Lily to his distinguished guests. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with disdain, whispering behind jeweled fans about the pauper bride. But Adrian silenced every doubt with a proud declaration, "This is the woman I love. This is my wife." His words gave Lily courage, even as she felt the weight of judgment pressing down upon her. The night ended in splendor. Fireworks lit the sky, showering the estate in colors of gold and crimson. Lily, dressed in satin and pearls, looked up at her husband and thought her heart might burst with gratitude. She had married into a world she never dared to dream of. Yet, as the final embers faded, Adrian's smile faltered for the briefest moment. His eyes, dark and distant, flickered with something Lily could not understand. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced with another kiss upon her hand. But somewhere deep inside, Lily felt the first tremor of unease, like a cold draft slipping into a warm room. The morning after the wedding, Lily awoke to a new life inside Blackwood Manor. The mansion was vast, its walls lined with oil paintings of Adrian's stern ancestors and corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly. Servants bowed as she passed, though their eyes lingered with something unreadable, part pity, part warning. Still, Lily told herself it was only because she was new, an outsider entering their world of wealth and power. Adrian showed her around with pride, pointing out the grand library filled with leather-bound books, the dining hall with its table large enough for 50 guests, and the lush gardens where fountains whispered under the sun. To Lily, it felt like stepping into a dream. She touched everything with reverence, from the marble banisters to the velvet curtains. Yet, one thing stood out: Adrian firmly avoided the east wing of the mansion. Whenever they passed the corridor leading toward it, his expression tightened and his pace quickened. That evening, curiosity tugged at Lily's thoughts. While Adrian entertained a guest in his study, she wandered near the forbidden wing. The corridor was dimly lit, its windows draped in heavy cloth, shutting out the moonlight. As she reached for the handle of a locked door, she heard a faint sound, like a whisper, low and strained, echoing from behind the wood. Her heart raced, and she quickly retreated, scolding herself for foolishness. When she returned to Adrian's side, he looked at her with piercing eyes, as though he already knew where she had been. His hand, warm yet strangely heavy on hers, tightened just a little too much. "Some doors," he said softly, "are never meant to be opened." Life in the Blackwood mansion soon settled into a rhythm of lavish dinners, endless visits from wealthy acquaintances, and evenings where Lily was dressed like a queen. Yet despite the luxury, she could not shake the unease that seemed stitched into the very walls of the house. The East Wing, in particular, haunted her thoughts. She often caught herself staring down that shadowed corridor, hearing again the faint, desperate whisper from behind the locked door. One stormy night, unable to sleep, Lily rose from her bed and wandered the halls. Thunder cracked outside, and the flicker of candlelight cast unsettling shadows. As she approached the east wing, the sound came again, clearer this time. It was not the wind, nor her imagination. It was a voice, soft but trembling, as though someone was weeping on the other side of the door. Her blood turned cold, and she pressed her ear against the wood. She could make out words, fragmented and broken. "Help, please." Just then, a hand gripped her shoulder. Lily spun around to find Adrian standing behind her, his expression unreadable in the dim glow of the candle he carried. For the first time since she had met him, she felt fear in his presence. His voice was calm, almost too calm, as he whispered, "I warned you, Lily. You must never come here again." He led her back to their chamber, his hand never leaving hers, though it felt more like a restraint than affection. That night, Lily lay awake beside her husband, staring into the darkness. The whispers behind the locked door would not leave her mind. Someone was hidden in that mansion. And Adrian Blackwood was determined to keep it a secret. Days passed, yet Lily could not silence the memory of that whisper in the east wing. The mansion's grandeur now felt like a prison, its golden halls concealing shadows that grew heavier with each passing night. The servants, who once seemed indifferent, now gave her fleeting glances of pity. Once, while Lily was being fitted for a new gown, the maid fastening the laces leaned close and whispered so softly it was barely audible, "Don't go near the east wing. For your own sake." Before Lily could ask what she meant, the maid quickly withdrew, her hands trembling. When Lily confronted Adrian later, he dismissed her unease with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You are overthinking, my love," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "This house is old. It creaks, it moans, the wind finds ways to trick your ears. But there is nothing here to fear." Yet beneath his words, Lily sensed a tension he could not mask. Every time the east wing was mentioned, his jaw clenched, his charm faltered, and his eyes grew dark. One evening, as they dined under the glow of chandeliers, Adrian reached across the table and took her hand in his. His grip was firm, almost possessive. "Promise me, Lily," he said, his voice low and commanding. "Promise me you will never wander into places I have forbidden. Curiosity, in this house, can be dangerous." Lily nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. She smiled as he wished, but inside, a seed of rebellion had taken root. She could not ignore the cries she had heard, nor the fear in the servants' eyes. Adrian's secret was more than a quirk of an old house, it was alive, and it was calling to her. The more Adrian insisted on silence, the louder the mystery screamed within Lily's mind. By day, she played the perfect wife, smiling at guests and walking the gardens at Adrian's side. By night, however, her thoughts returned to that locked door in the east wing. She needed answers Adrian would never willingly give. One morning, while Adrian was away in the city attending a business meeting, Lily decided to act. The mansion seemed quieter without his looming presence. She moved carefully, aware that the servants might report her every step. Still, determination carried her feet down the forbidden corridor. The air grew colder the closer she came, the silence oppressive. She reached the door she had once pressed her ear against and found, to her astonishment, that the lock had not been fastened properly. The latch hung loosely, as though someone had left in haste. With trembling hands, Lily pushed the door open. The room beyond was dim, the curtains drawn tight, and the air heavy with the scent of dampness. In the center of the room stood a chair with restraints fastened to its arms. A blanket was draped carelessly across the floor, and beside it sat a cracked porcelain doll, its face twisted into a permanent grin. Lily's chest tightened, her skin crawling. This was no ordinary storage room. It felt lived in, but not by choice. Before she could explore further, the faint sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. Panic surged through her. She quickly pulled the door closed and hurried away, her heart racing. That night, when Adrian returned, his smile seemed sharper, his gaze keener, as if he could smell her curiosity. "Did you keep your promise, Lily?" he asked casually. His tone was sweet, but his eyes were warning her of something far darker. Adrian Blackwood was a master of charm. In public, he was the perfect gentleman, polished, witty, generous with both his wealth and his praise. The city adored him, businessmen envied him, and women admired him. To the outside world, he was flawless. But Lily was beginning to see the cracks beneath the polished mask. When he thought no one was watching, his smile would drop into something grim and cold. At dinner, his grip on the silverware was so tight that his knuckles blanched. On nights when he returned late, his clothes carried the faintest trace of iron, a metallic scent that churned Lily's stomach. She asked where he had been, and he replied with laughter, brushing off her suspicions. "A man must work hard to keep his fortune, my love. You should not worry yourself with such matters." But Lily could not ignore what she had seen in the East Wing, the restraints, the unsettling doll, the chilling atmosphere that whispered of suffering. The image stayed with her, gnawing at her heart. Was Adrian hiding someone? Was the whispering voice she heard truly real, or the creation of her weary mind? That evening, while Adrian stood before the mirror adjusting his tie, Lily gathered the courage to ask, "Adrian, why is the East Wing locked? What are you hiding from me?" For the first time, his face hardened completely. No charm, no smile, only a cold stare that froze her in place. "You are my wife," he said quietly, "and wives obey their husbands. The East Wing is none of your concern. Do not test my patience again." Lily lowered her gaze, her heart pounding with dread. In that moment, she realized something terrifying. Adrian Blackwood was not merely keeping secrets. He was guarding them with the fury of a man who had everything to lose. The more Adrian forbade her, the more Lily's determination grew. Fear gnawed her, yes, but so did the cries she had heard. She could not abandon the possibility that someone, perhaps helpless, perhaps imprisoned, was trapped in that East Wing. The thought kept her awake at night, staring into the darkness while Adrian slept peacefully at her side. One afternoon, when Adrian was away once more, Lily returned to the forbidden corridor. This time, she carried a small lantern and her courage, though both trembled in her hands. She slipped inside the same room she had discovered earlier. It was just as she had left it, restraints on the chair, the porcelain doll staring with its eerie grin. But now she noticed something new. In the corner of the room, half hidden beneath a rug, was a small wooden hatch. Her heart pounded as she tugged the rug aside and pulled open the hatch. A narrow staircase spiraled downward into darkness. The air that rose from below was heavy, damp, and tinged with a faint, metallic odor. Steeling herself, Lily descended. The lantern's glow revealed stone walls, lined with old chains and hooks that clinked faintly when she brushed past. At the end of the passage was another door, this one locked with a thick iron bar. As Lily pressed her ear against it, she heard it again, a whisper, fragile and desperate. "Please, help me," the voice was unmistakably human. Tears welled in her eyes as her suspicion turned into certainty. Someone was trapped here, hidden beneath Adrian's mansion. A sudden noise upstairs jolted her. The slam of a door echoed through the halls above. Adrian was home. Heart racing, Lily rushed back up the staircase, replacing the rug just in time. By the time he found her in the parlor, pretending to read, she was trembling. Adrian's eyes lingered on her too long, as though he sensed she had been somewhere she should not. That night, Lily could barely breathe for the weight of what she had discovered. There was no longer any doubt Adrian was hiding a prisoner in his mansion. The voice she had heard was not a dream, not the groan of wood or the trick of wind. Someone was alive down there, whispering for help. But who? And why? When Adrian finally drifted into a heavy sleep, Lily slipped from the bed and tiptoed back into the East Wing, lantern clutched tightly in her hands. Her heart hammered as she lifted the rug and opened the hidden hatch again. The narrow staircase seemed even darker, even heavier with dread. She descended slowly, her breath shallow, until she reached the barred door. "Hello," she whispered, pressing her lips to the wood. "Can you hear me?" There was silence at first, then the faint sound of movement, followed by a weak reply. "Please, don't leave me here." The voice was hoarse, fragile, like someone who hadn't spoken freely in a very long time. Lily's throat tightened with horror. She tugged at the iron bar, but it was locked tight, impossible to move without a key. "I'll come back," she promised, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll find a way to free you." Before the voice could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed faintly through the mansion. Terrified, Lily closed the hatch and returned to her chamber. Adrian was still asleep when she slipped back into bed, but his arm instinctively curled around her waist, pulling her close. His touch was warm, yet she shivered under it, knowing that the same man who whispered sweet words by day was capable of such abominable cruelty by night. The weight of the secret grew unbearable. Lily could no longer look at Adrian without imagining the prisoner below their home, begging for freedom. Every smile he gave her, every affectionate gesture, felt like a mask concealing a monster. She needed answers, no more evasion, no more half-truths. One evening, as they dined by candlelight, Lily set down her fork and fixed her gaze on her husband. "Adrian," she said softly, though her voice trembled, "I know about the East Wing. I know about the room, and the person you've hidden down there." The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian froze, his wineglass halfway to his lips. For a moment, his eyes burned with fury, then softened into something unreadable. He set the glass down with deliberate care, leaning back in his chair. "So," he said slowly, "you've disobeyed me." Lily's heart pounded, but she held her ground. "Why? Who is down there? What have you done?" Adrian rose from his chair and circled the table, his steps echoing against the marble floor. He stopped beside her, tilting her chin upward so she was forced to meet his eyes. "Some truths," he whispered, "are far more dangerous than lies. That person below is part of my past. A past I cannot allow to be set free." Lily's stomach twisted. His words were laced with menace, yet his tone was calm, almost tender. He kissed her forehead before straightening again. "Do not force me to choose between loving you and protecting what must remain hidden." That night, as Lily lay awake, Adrian's confession echoed in her mind. It was not a denial. It was an admission. And though he spoke of love, she knew now that his heart was chained to something else, something dark and unforgivable. After Adrian's chilling confession, Lily knew she could no longer remain a silent observer. Whoever was trapped in that dungeon beneath the East Wing was suffering, and she could not stand by while Adrian cloaked his cruelty behind wealth and charm. Fear still gripped her heart, but a stronger force now stirred within her, resolve. The following days, Lily played her role carefully. She smiled at Adrian, dined at his side, and listened to his conversations with visiting businessmen as though nothing were amiss. But in secret, she watched him closely. She noticed where he placed his keys at night, how he guarded certain pockets of his coat more fiercely than others, and how he never allowed servants near the East Wing. Piece by piece, she began forming her plan. One afternoon, while Adrian met with an associate in the city, Lily slipped into his study. She searched quickly but meticulously, her hands trembling as she rifled through drawers and cabinets. At last, hidden in a small wooden box, she found it, the heavy iron key, etched with strange markings. Her chest tightened as she clutched it to her chest. This was her chance. That night, while Adrian slept soundly, Lily rose from bed, key hidden in the folds of her gown. She moved silently through the mansion, every creak of the floorboards sending a shiver down her spine. At last, she reached the hatch in the East Wing and descended the narrow staircase. The iron door loomed before her, its cold surface waiting. With shaking hands, she slid the key into the lock. The mechanism clicked. The door creaked open. And for the first time, Lily stood face to face with Adrian's prisoner. The lantern's glow spilled into the cell, revealing a figure huddled in the corner. It was a woman, frail, pale, her wrists marked with raw bruises from chains that still clung to her. Her eyes, wide with fear, lifted to meet Lily's. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't let him keep me here." Lily's heart broke at the sight. She rushed forward, fumbling with the chains until they clattered to the ground. The woman trembled violently, as though she no longer believed freedom was possible. "Who are you?" Lily asked softly. "Why has Adrian kept you here?" The woman's lips quivered as she spoke. "My name is Clara. I was his first wife." The words struck Lily like a blade. Adrian's first wife? Alive, yet locked away like an animal? Clara's eyes filled with tears as she explained. Adrian had married her years ago, but when she discovered his darker inclinations, his violent temper, his hunger for control, she tried to leave. Instead of granting her freedom, Adrian imprisoned her, hiding her existence from the world so no one would question his charm or fortune. Lily's stomach turned. The man she had thought her savior was nothing but a monster who wore kindness as a disguise. She took Clara's hand and whispered, "I'll get you out. We'll both leave this place." But just as they climbed the staircase, a shadow fell across the hatch. Adrian stood there, lantern in hand, his face twisted with cold fury. "I warned you, Lily," he said, his voice low and venomous. "Some doors should never be opened." Lily tightened her grip on Clara's hand. For the first time, she looked at Adrian not with fear, but with defiance. Whatever came next, she would not be his obedient wife any longer. She had uncovered the truth, and the truth had given her the courage to fight.